Hey family, it is Philip Suber, and I am so excited as always to be in your place, your space, this moment with you. Let's go. Hey family, thank you again for just allowing me to be in your world, to speak life and power to you wherever you are, whatever season, whatever situation, wherever you are in your life. I'm just grateful that I can impart something of substance that is valuable to you. So, hey, I know that you have not been living under a rock and you are in the loop with all of the happenings that are going on in this world with the election and with tariffs and with the war in Ukraine and taxes and just the price of eggs, right? All of the political commentary, all of the tension and the arguments. And I am certain that you're aware. And if you are not, how could you not be? It's so much going on. And I don't want to talk about the politics, but I do want to tell you this. You know that you are a key factor in the trajectory of the future when everybody's competing for your attention. Hear me. I'm not just talking about the election, but I'm speaking about your life, wherever you are. Because although these headlines are streaming across the world, what is the headline in your individual world? What's the headline in your marriage? What's the headline in your children's relationship and where they are in their lives? What's the headline in your family? What's the headline on your job? What's the headline in your mind? Has you questioning and thinking about things, and a lot of times it may be leading you to a place of doubt and discouragement, fear about the future, discontentment, losing confidence, afraid to be confident in the hope that you once had because the variation of things that are taking place and transpiring all around you that may seem like it's beyond your control. But yet there are many voices trying to get your attention, trying to persuade you to make certain decisions, trying to persuade you to accept certain things as truth, trying to influence you to use certain thoughts, concepts, and perspectives to build a belief system that will ultimately impact the next decision in your life, that will impact and have a strong influence on the trajectory of your relationships, your marriage, your finances, your job, your children, and all those and everything that is impacted in your environment by you, where you are the nucleus. Did you forget how important you are? Did you forget the weight that you carry in this earth? Did you forget that you may not be the president, you may not be the king or the queen, but you are valuable in your world? You may not be the CEO, but what you bring to the table every day that you wake up, the decisions that you make have an impact that speaks volumes. And you know how I know? Because there's so many voices trying to get your attention, trying to influence the decisions that you make, trying to construct belief systems that you would subscribe to. They're only valid if you subscribe to them. These decisions only impact because you are the one that's going to make them. There's an old saying that is relevant that I grew up hearing over and over and over again. And the saying is this: the mind is a terrible thing to waste. And this is why so many voices are competing for your mind, because your mind, your thoughts are so valuable. They influence the things around you. And listen, I can feel your energy. You're debating the significance of your decisions, and you may be thinking, "Oh, what I decide is just for me." You may be thinking that nobody else is impacted, but yes, they are. Yes, they are. And if you don't see it, you will see it. Keep living. You will see it. The impact of your decisions, the impact of your love, your hate, your bitterness, your resentment, your giving, your stinginess, your frugalness, your wisdom, and your foolishness. It impacts other people in your life besides you. And this is why there are so many voices competing for your attention. How many times have you swiped Instagram today? How many times? Has it become an addiction? You on Facebook and TikTok? Why you think they created the algorithms so that the next thing that pops up on your screen keeps you engaged? How much time has that stolen from you and your productivity? How much time has it taken away from the ability and the decision to think for yourself? Well, you've read a post that spoke to your emotions and your feelings, and you took it in as to be true. You took it in and you validated based off of your current place in life, and you begin to build on that belief systems that ultimately begin to influence your decision making and shape your perspective on situations and issues. You thought you was just scrolling. You thought you was just wasting time or taking a mental break away from whatever task that is before you. But the whole while, you've been sucked into what you said was going to be just 2 minutes into 15, 20 minutes. And before you know it, you have wasted 3 hours of your day as accumulated by these so-called glances of social media. It stole your time. Not only your time, but it has redirected your thoughts, and it has caused you to think another way without telling you what to think. It just suggested through somebody else's post to somebody else's pictures. You turned on the television and you understand how the media only presents what they want to present, not the whole story, not the whole truth, because it's projecting a certain angle of a story so that it can influence your thinking to make decisions that will be favorable for the ultimate agenda behind the company. And you thought you were just catching up on the news. You've been watching movies with subliminal messages that have drawn you in through the actors, through the plot behind it, but in it has secretly begun to give you messages and signals to curve your emotions to feel a certain way, to curve your thinking into thinking a certain way. And here it is, as a society, if we are not careful, we will lose ourselves and our connections to our core values and that which makes us authentic in our responses to various nuances and situations, occurrences, and experiences of life. We'll begin to respond based off of how we've been prompted to respond through what we have exposed ourselves to instead of what we have sat down and been able to think through independently. This world is full of voices competing for your attention. I like to bring your attention to Genesis, the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, and the third character who's introduced into the story before God comes looking for Adam and Eve in the truth of who they are, in the nakedness of this truth, and finds them hiding behind the plants, the garments to cover their shame. They came because of this third character that was introduced, being the serpent. And notice that the serpent did not tell Eve what to do. The serpent did not demand for Eve to make a certain decision. The serpent simply questioned her truth until she relinquished it from being esteemed as truth to a debatable fact or opinion that needed now to be proven to be true or false. The enemy came with suggestions and questions that were geared and pointed to lead her and persuade her to take on a belief system that will ultimately direct her and lead her to make a decision that will work in his favor, not hers. How many times in life, if you look back, have we encountered the seductive manipulation of an outside voice challenging the truths of who we are and our identity and our values and what's important for us, and have persuaded us to take on the temporary interest of another, to take on the temporary thoughts of another, the things and ideas that spoke to the emotions of where we were, that have played on the vulnerability of our uncertainty in some area of our lives, and then it began to bleed over into a place where we once were confident, now we questioned. And I get it. Here's the balance of what my statement. I understand that there were things that we have subscribed to as truth that really wasn't truth, and we didn't discover that it wasn't truth until it was questioned. But here's the thing: the serpent wasn't questioning something that wasn't true, he was questioning truth. And he questioned it in a way to where he made her afraid to stand on the strength of her knowing that this is true. And she found herself being persuaded by another voice. And it's not funny, but you know how we say it's funny how, just the cliche and the saying of it, that nothing that the enemy did was really to better her. It was to seduce her into a decision and put her in a predicament that did not favor her, but brought about punishment to her and Adam. And when God comes in the garden and he's looking for them, he understands what happened. But God says, I'm looking for you to remain. I'm looking for you in the truth in which I gave you. And when I came, I found you hiding in the manipulated perspective, understanding of what the serpent convinced you of. And many of us today, we're in seasons of our lives where we are meant to stand in the truth of who we are, but we're hiding behind the shame of what society has said, of what other people's opinions have projected, of what the principalities and the powers of this day have persuaded you otherwise to think and accept as true that is really not. But it's an agenda that feeds the purposes of everyone else except for you. And this is why we still have emptiness in our lives, places and voids that need to be filled. I hope that this is coming across in a way where it provokes you to go back to the places of truth and find out, what did I exchange for the truth of my true identity? What did I exchange for my confidence? What did I exchange for my visions and the dreams and aspirations that I had? What did I exchange where I no longer have those dreams and ambitions anymore? I've given up on them. I told myself that I can't do this and I can't do that. I have to settle for this. I have to settle for that. Or the powers that be won't allow me to do this. I wish I could, but I can't. Where did where is the place of exchange? What circumstance in your life made you vulnerable enough to take on the suggestion that you can't and that you never will be able to? Where is the place where that interaction took place? What was the conversation or the accumulation of conversations that came to suggest to you thoughts of weaknesses in exchange for the strength that you once stood in? Listen, there are many voices seeking to take residency in the real estate of your mind. And they are doing it because they realize more than what we often accept the power and the significance of our minds. This is why we think crazy. This is why we offer our perspectives to be battled by other people's perspectives and thoughts, we allow ourselves to be questioned. We rarely stand upon, as the saying is now, stand on business. We rarely stand upon the truth that we really know to be true. And we've exchanged some of these truths for the convenience of taking on the temporary facts and opinions of our society and of others. One thing about truth is that truth remains, regardless of the trends, regardless of situations and experiences. Truth is. And it doesn't have to be proven. It's outlasted generations after generations. It's outlasted situations and outcomes, and it remains. Opinions fluctuate, and they need approval to be validated. But truth doesn't have to be validated. Truth just brings with it the consequence of whether you choose to accept it or not. It's going to remain. And truth is greater than opinions. And when we understand that the truth of who we are and knowing our identity, knowing the core values and the things that are most meaningful to our lives, that will bring us the most fulfillment, when we hold on to those things, we will find ourselves being able to now live life to the fullest, because otherwise we exchange the open-mindedness of evolving into greater truth for the limitation of other people's beliefs and other people's expectations. We want to live a life of abundance, but we've subscribed to the poverty mindset. We want to live in a place of influence, but we've bought into the various justifications to say why we don't matter in different areas of our lives. Whatever it may have been, maybe something that you've experienced in the past, and the truth of God tells you that you can rise up and you can overcome and you can prevail. But the situations that we've encountered have been so strong. The other voices in our lives have been so strong and so loud to say, you can't do it. You have to settle. You can only go so far. You can't dream anymore. And the times that you were able to dream, they were childish dreams of immaturity. But you know what? Jesus said, except you have the faith of a child, childlike faith. Man, I'm getting a little passionate here. I've come to this understanding. It is okay to be a minority. And I'm not just talking about being a black male African American. No, I'm not talking about that minority. I'm talking about the fact that many of us are getting lost in the weeds of blending in with the majority, and we lose ourselves in the sauce of all the happenings that are going on. But all the great people that you study, whether they were good or bad, were not those who blended in with the majority, but they stood out as minorities. They stood out in their distinctiveness and in their boldness to be different, their boldness to be authentic to what they understood to be true. Some of us are getting lost in the loudness of everything that's going on around us. If you can spiritually and mentally and emotionally put on some headphones with noise cancellation and block out the noise of everything else and listen to yourself, listen to your heart, listen to your body, listen to the truth that is inside of you saying, hey, we need to work out. We're gaining too much weight. Hey, we need work-life balance, as they would say. We need to perfect the rhythm of our day so that we can be more productive. We need to perfect our food and what we're eating and understand that your body is telling you that this is not good for you. But we're caught up in the trends and the latest fashions and all of these things that we're due and that we see that are not really beneficial for us. And so I think we are at jeopardy of losing ourselves because we've given our attention to the voices of everyone else, everyone else's agendas. And can you believe that families have split apart and had disagreements and division because of political parties and associations and belief systems and what they've subscribed to? It is important that we understand the significance of who we are and that the power of who we are is not found in following the masses and the majority and the loudest voices and those who are creating the most motion to be detected and seen by everyone else. But it is really understanding that within us there is a small, still voice of truth. And if we're not careful, it's easy to ignore it. You know, whether you're a Bible reader or not, there is an account in the Bible where one of the prophets of old, he's listening for God, and there's an earthquake, and there's a strong wind, and there's all these happenings that are going on that you would think there is God. He's in the big. He's in the big things that are shaking and rambling. And although God makes big things happen, the instruction and the voice of God was not in those things. And some of us, we're being distracted by the noise of everything around us. But the Bible continues to say that it was in the small, still whisper that the prophet recognized the voice of God. And some of us will find that God's not in the hoopla and all the excitement of all the external things that are going on around us, competing for our attention, but He's in the small whisper. I think about this scripture where God tells the children of Israel, He speaks into them and He says, "Be still and know that I am God." It is often in the busyness of the day and the lack of discipline to be still that we lose clarity, that we lose confidence in what we have come to know, and that we begin to move and become vulnerable in fear, contemplation, doubt, insecurities, and all the things that could be spoken to, dealt with, and healed in our silence, in our ability to be still more so than silence, in our stillness, to silence the voice of anxiety, to silence all the other voices and tune them out so that we can hear the truth, that we are empowered to make qualitative decisions, that we are empowered to have clarity and to understand the significance of who we are and where we are and what lies before us and the power of the decisions and the choices that we are able to make. To understand that the past is not the ultimate end all be all, but it is simply a chapter. But in the present of where we are, we have the power to change the trajectory of our lives and make decisions that will end generational curses, make decisions that will open up chapters of prosperity and success for our families, that will open up chapters that will empower us to have creative legacies that will speak well of us even after we're gone, and that will also empower the generations to come after us. To know that even in this moment, no matter how you feel, feelings are volatile, but truth remains. I hope this podcast has been a blessing for you and meaningful in what you have heard. And I hope that it strengthens you, empowers you, and enables you to reconsider and also make decisions that will connect you to the voice of truth, that will realign you if necessary with the core values that speak to your fulfillment, your purpose, and your identity. And that you hold on to it, and that you live from that place of authenticity versus being guided by all the other voices and confused and lack of clarity that all those voices offer you. To learn what it is to be still, the power of it. Be still and know. Be still and know. I'll see you in the next session.